The lights were blinding, the music loud, and the cameras everywhere. It was the biggest night of the year. The red carpet was rolled out across the plaza, and thousands of fans stood behind the barricades, screaming with joy. Flashes from cameras bounced off every polished shoe and every sparkling dress. This was the Global Cinema Awards, where dreams turned into gold statues and mistakes became headlines. Ana de Armas had just stepped out of the car. Her heart was beating fast, not from nerves, but from excitement. She had worked hard for this night. For months, she had trained, rehearsed, promoted, and barely slept. Her dress was custom-made, a soft silver gown that shimmered like moonlight. It hugged her figure perfectly and moved like water when she walked. She felt powerful, felt beautiful, and she was nominated. As she walked up the carpet, her face calm but eyes glowing, reporters shouted her name. Everyone wanted a moment, a smile. Quote, she answered a few, posed gracefully, and kept moving. She saw Keanu standing near the stage entrance waiting. For her, they were presenting together that night. She smiled at him. He smiled back. Then it happened. A camera boom shifted overhead. Someone shouted. The boom dipped too low. She ducked instinctively, but the metal edge brushed the back of her dress. There was a loud tear. Her eyes widened, unmistakable. The back of her gown ripped halfway down. A split second of frozen silence. She didn't move. She didn't even breathe. Then came the flashes. Paparazzi saw the moment. Some of them began to raise their lenses faster, trying to capture it. Others shouted her name again, louder, sharper. She could feel her dress falling, exposing the bare skin of her back. She clutched the front tightly and turned her body, trying to cover herself, but her face turned pale. Every step she took would risk showing more. Keanu saw it all. From 20 feet away, his calm eyes locked on hers. He didn't wait. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight onto the red carpet, past the stunned camera crew, past the reporters still yelling. He took off his long black blazer and draped it over her shoulders gently. Then he stood in front of her, facing the cameras. Blocking every angle. He didn't speak, didn't raise his voice. He just stood there. The flashes slowed down. The crowd quieted. A strange silence grew across the carpet, as if the whole world had suddenly realized it had gone too far. Ana's head dropped, tears beginning to form in her eyes, not from shame, but from the weight of everything. The kindness, the protection, the way he didn't make her feel small. Keanu whispered softly, "You're okay. I've got you." He gently guided her off the carpet, one hand behind her back, the other holding the blazer in place. The crowd parted silently. The moment went viral before they even reached the hallway. Backstage, staff rushed forward with safety pins, clips, and a backup gown. Keanu stood aside while Ana fixed the dress. His jacket still rested over her shoulders. Ana sat down on a bench, breathing heavily. "They're going to talk about this," she said quietly. Keanu knelt in front of her, steady as always. "Let them talk," he said. "Let them see how you stood tall, even when your world ripped open." She looked at him, her eyes wet. But she smiled. Outside, social media exploded. Half the world was debating whether the moment had been staged. Others were writing angry posts about the photographers. But the clip of Keanu stepping in front of the cameras was everywhere looped. Shared, praised. But Keanu didn't care about the noise. He cared that Ana had walked back out 10 minutes later, chin high, wearing a new dress and the same quiet strength. The audience rose when she entered the hall. They didn't cheer, they simply stood in respect. Ana walked to the mic that night, side by side with Keanu, and when she spoke, her voice was soft but unshaken. "Sometimes life rips open what you've carefully prepared. But if you're lucky," she said, glancing at him, "someone kind will stand in front of the storm until you can stand on your own." Keanu didn't say a word. He just looked at her with eyes that said everything. And the whole room listened in silence. The morning after the awards, everything changed. Ana woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing nonstop. The screen was filled with missed calls, messages, and dozens of notifications. She rubbed her eyes and sat up slowly, the events of last night rushing back into her mind like waves. She had barely slept. Not because of shame, but because of how the world had reacted. Kindness had turned into headlines. Protection had turned into debate. And her mistake, though accidental, had become a symbol. She scrolled through the news. There were pictures of her moment of fear, close-ups of Keanu standing like a shield. Hundreds of articles with titles like "Keanu Saves the Night" or "Ana's Grace Under Pressure." Some praised her for returning to the stage. Others questioned the camera crew, the boom operator, the entire red carpet setup. But it wasn't the news that got to her, it was the messages. Some from young girls saying, "You made me feel brave." Others from survivors of public shame saying, "I watched you not run away. I'll remember that." Anna held her phone tightly in both hands. She wasn't just an actress now. She had become something else without asking for it, a symbol, and that scared her. Later that morning, she met Keanu for coffee at a small, quiet cafe tucked into the hills. Far away from flashing lights, he greeted her with a soft smile and a warm hug, as if nothing had changed, as if last night had never happened. But she could tell he was watching her closely. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently. "Overwhelmed," she whispered. "I didn't want to become a message. I just wanted to enjoy the night." Keanu nodded slowly. "Sometimes the world sees more in you than you meant to show. That doesn't mean it's wrong, it means you touched something deep." "I don't feel strong," she admitted. "I feel seen to seen." He looked out the window, thinking, then said, "Being seen is a risk, but it's also a chance to lead others out of hiding." Anna looked down at her coffee, steam rising. She didn't know how to carry that weight she hadn't trained for. Fame was one thing. Responsibility was another. But Keanu had always carried both, like a quiet fire that night. A talk show host invited her and Keanu to speak about the incident. They declined, but the host kept pushing. The network even offered double pay. Producers told Anna it was her moment to shine, to control the narrative. She looked at the email, heart pounding, then deleted it. "I don't want to use pain for promotion," she told Keanu. "Then don't," he replied. "Truth will speak without a microphone." But the world didn't quiet down. More requests came. More shows. More offers to model strong woman campaigns. With photos of her in that ripped gown, someone even created a perfume ad mock-up using her image. "Grace Under Fire," it said in gold letters. She felt sick. Then came the invitation from a school. A high school teacher had written to her, explaining how some students were being bullied. They had watched Anna's moment in class and had a long discussion. The teacher asked if Anna could visit the students, not for a speech, but just to show them that fear doesn't have to win. Anna read the message twice. It wasn't for clout. It wasn't for cameras. It was for them. She said yes. Keanu offered to go with her, just as a friend, just as someone to drive and sit quietly in the back if she needed support. Double quotes, "I think you're stronger than you feel." Smiled, unsure if she believed it, but grateful for the belief. On the day of the visit, Anna wore a simple blouse and jeans. No makeup, no glitter, no camera crew. The school gym was small. About 80 students sat on foldable chairs. They were quiet when she entered, curious, unsure what to expect. Anna stood in front of them, holding a microphone. Her hands shook a little, but her voice didn't. "I want to tell you a secret," she said. "I thought my biggest fear was embarrassment. But it turns out my biggest fear was thinking I'd be alone if something went wrong." The students listened closely. "Last week, my dress ripped in front of millions of people," she said. But someone stepped forward, not to fix it, not to explain it, just to stand there until I could stand again. She looked at Keanu, who was sitting quietly in the back. "And maybe that's what kindness is," she continued. "Not grand gestures, but simple presence." A few kids nodded. Some smiled. One girl wiped her eyes. After the talk, a boy came up to her. He looked nervous. Maybe 12 or 13. "My sister got bullied because of her clothes," he said quietly. "But she watched you. And she didn't cry last night when they teased her again." Anna knelt down to his level. "Tell your sister she's not alone." He nodded, then ran off. On the ride back, Anna stared out the window. The sky was soft and blue. The wind through the car window felt light. "I think this matters more than the award," she whispered. Keanu, driving calmly, said nothing, but his slight smile said he agreed. That night, Anna opened her window and sat by it for a long time, thinking. The stars didn't blink or move. They just stayed, silent and watching, just like Keanu had. And maybe that was the lesson she was learning some. People don't fix your world. They just stand beside you while you put it back together. 3 days later, Anna received an invitation that she almost didn't open. It was hand-delivered, written on thick, cream-colored paper, sealed with a golden wax stamp. No logo, no return address. Just her name, written in careful, delicate handwriting. She turned it over twice before opening it. Inside was a single line. "We'd be honored if you joined us to speak not as an actress, but as a voice for dignity. No press, no photos, just truth." At the bottom there was an address. Washington, D.C., and below that, signature, Reverend Lee Dotna. Didn't know who that was. She Googled it later and discovered he was the founder of a small foundation that worked with survivors of public humiliation students, workers, even whistleblowers, people whose names had been dragged through the dirt online or in the media. They ran something called the Dignity Circle, a private retreat where no phones were allowed, and everyone sat in a circle and shared what it felt like to be broken and still show up. Anna sat with the invite in her hands, unsure. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't televised. There were no awards, no fans, just people who had been hurt by the world and were learning to keep breathing. What if I don't belong? There, she asked Keanu when they met again at their usual cafe. "Maybe you don't," he replied gently. "But maybe someone there needs you to walk in so they can feel like they belong too." Anna didn't answer right away, but she booked the flight. She arrived quietly. No assistant, no team, just a small bag, sunglasses, and a heavy heart. The retreat was held in a quiet old library surrounded by trees, about an hour outside the city. 20 chairs were arranged in a circle. Sunlight poured in through high windows. The people there weren't strangers. They were familiar in a deeper way, people carrying invisible scars. There was a girl who had been filmed crying at a school protest and mocked for days online. There was a man who had spoken out against his company and lost everything. A young woman whose ex had leaked her photos. A boy who had tripped on stage during a spelling bee and still hadn't returned to school. They didn't ask Anna for selfies, they just made space for her. When it was her turn to speak, she felt her throat tighten. "I thought I had control." She began. "I thought if I smiled right, walked right, said the right things, I'd be safe." Her hands trembled. But that night, when my dress tore, I realized how fragile safety really is. I didn't feel ashamed of my body, felt betrayed by the silence around me. People saw it and lifted their cameras, not their hands. She paused, breathing slowly. But then someone stepped forward, not to save me, not to explain me, just to stand. And that gave me room to breathe again. They sat in silence afterward, not the cold kind. The warm kind, the kind that holds your words and doesn't try to fix them. After the session, the man who had lost his job sat beside her on the steps outside. He said quietly, "I used to think I needed to shout to be heard, but maybe I just needed to show up honestly." Anna nodded. "You did," she whispered. The weekend passed with soft conversations and long walks through the trees. No one judged anyone else. No one asked about fame. No one brought up movies or gossip. It was all about human moments, tiny ones, the kind no camera ever captures. On the last night, someone brought out a candle and placed it in the center of the circle. Each person took turns lighting a match and sharing one sentence they wished the world had heard before they were hurt. When it was Anna's turn, she hesitated. Then she lit her match and said, "I was more than the headline you gave. Me." And with that, she let go of something heavy she didn't even know she had been carrying. When Anna returned to Los Angeles, her agent was waiting with a pile of new offers. Perfume brands, a book deal, interviews with major talk shows. "You're hot right now," her agent said. "This is your window." Anna looked at the stack, then shook her head slowly. "This isn't a window," she said. "It's a mirror, and I don't want to perform in front of it." Keanu took her for a quiet dinner that night. They didn't talk much at first, just enjoyed the peace. Then Anna leaned forward. "You changed my life that night," she said. Keanu looked at her carefully. "I didn't do anything special. That's why it meant so much," she whispered. "You didn't do it for applause. You did it so I could stay whole." He didn't respond right away. He just reached across the table and held her hand gently. In the weeks that followed, Anna began visiting schools more often. It's not for press, not for stories, just to listen, to speak softly. To remind others that one moment doesn't define them. Students began calling her the Quiet Fire. She didn't ask for that name, but it felt right, because even when the world tried to strip her power away, she had learned how to keep standing. It was a rainy evening when Anna got the call. A young director named Maya had just been fired from her debut film. The reason wasn't talent, it wasn't behavior. It was something quieter and colder pressure from investors who didn't believe. A first-time woman director could carry a major project, especially one about vulnerability and grief. Maya's assistant reached out to Anna, explaining how deeply the film had been inspired by Anna's recent story. The central character was a woman who goes through public shame, only to discover that her true strength is found in quiet moments of connection. The assistant added, "Maya says your name helped her write the ending. She's not even allowed to finish her own story." Anna sat alone in her living room. Listening to the rain tap against the windows, she called Keanu. "Do you know anything about indie film funding?" she asked. Keanu chuckled softly, enough to know it's a mess. "Do you help me figure something out?" she said. "Anything," he replied. By morning, Anna had already sent emails to 4 women producers she trusted. She didn't ask for favors. She just sent Maya's script, her personal message, and one quiet line at the bottom. "I think this story matters, not just because it's mine." Within a week, 2 of them replied. One of them, a veteran producer, called Anna personally and said, "We'll fund it, but only if Maya directs. It's no compromise." Anna smiled, her eyes filling. "Thank you," she whispered. The story didn't make headlines at first. No magazine picked it up. No gossip blog cared. But word spread through the quiet halls of the industry. Anna was using her voice for something real. The project moved fast. Small crew, tight budget, big hearts. Anna didn't ask for the lead role. She asked for a small supporting part. She wanted Maya's story to shine. Not her stardom. Keanu agreed to produce it quietly, without credit. He showed up to set in jeans and a hoodie, carrying coffee for the crew and fixing lights when needed. People didn't recognize him at first, and that was the way he liked it. On the first day of shooting, Maya pulled Anna aside. "I used to think strength was about power," she said. "But you made me realize strength is just staying when it's easier to leave." Anna smiled softly. "You stayed too," she said. "Even after they pushed you out." Maya nodded. "Because someone reminded me that being unseen doesn't mean being unworthy." The film wrapped in 22 days. It premiered at a small festival in Oregon. No red carpet, no fancy gowns, just folding chairs, a dimly lit stage, and a projector that sometimes flickered. But when the film ended, the room stayed silent for nearly 30 seconds before anyone clapped. They weren't quiet because they were bored. They were quiet because something inside them had shifted. One woman in the crowd, wiping tears, stood up and said, "I didn't know it was okay to fall apart, till now." Anna and Maya held hands backstage, hearts full. Later that night, a young woman named Jamie approached Anna outside the venue. She looked nervous, holding something wrapped in brown paper. "I made this for you," she said, handing it over to Anna. Opened it gently. Inside was a hand-drawn portrait of that night on the red carpet, Anna holding her ripped dress, eyes scared, and Keanu standing in front of her like a silent wall of calm. But in Jamie's drawing, there was more behind Keanu. were dozens of people, all standing together. A chain of kindness. You reminded me that I wasn't alone, Jamie said, and now I'm trying to do that for others. Anna hugged her tightly. Jamie whispered, "The world didn't break you." Anna whispered back, "Because people like you helped rebuild me." A few weeks later, the film quietly won a storytelling award. But more than that, schools began showing clips from the movie to teach empathy. Counselors started using its scenes during sessions with teenagers. Some universities requested Anna and Maya for guest talks, not about acting or directing, but about healing and humility. Anna felt something inside her shifting. She no longer needed to prove her worth in glittering rooms or shiny premieres. She had found something deeper. One evening, she and Keanu sat by the ocean listening to the waves crash. She asked him, "Do you think we changed anything?" He watched the horizon for a long time before answering. "I think we reminded people they could feel again," he said. Anna leaned against him. "Do you ever regret stepping in front of those cameras?" she asked quietly. "Never," he said. "I didn't do it to be seen. I did it so you didn't have to be." Anna closed her eyes. The ocean kept breathing. And for the first time in months, she felt completely at peace. It was supposed to be a simple event, a charity fundraiser for children affected by online bullying. No red carpet, no press. Just a small gathering in a community hall near downtown Los Angeles. Anna had been invited to say a few words, nothing long, just something hopeful. She agreed right away. She even offered to cover the catering costs. Herself, Keanu offered to drive her there. They didn't make it a big deal. No security, no announcement. Just the two of them in a quiet car, parked. Behind the hall, before anyone noticed them, Anna wore a soft white blouse and flat shoes. She wasn't there as a celebrity. She was there as a listener, a witness. The room was full of folding chairs, soft music, and children drawing quietly at craft tables. Parents stood nearby, talking softly.
Ow.
The air smelled like crayons, cinnamon, tea, and hope. Anna walked in and immediately noticed a girl sitting alone in the corner. Maybe 11 years old, with a hood over her head and her arms wrapped tightly around herself. No one was teasing her, but no one was talking to her either. Anna didn't walk straight to the stage. She walked straight to the girl. She knelt down beside her and gently said, "Can I sit here too?" The girl looked up, surprised. She nodded slowly. They sat together. In silence for a moment. "My name's Anna," she said softly. "I know," the girl replied without looking up. Anna smiled. "What's yours?" "Lila," she whispered. Anna looked at the drawing on Lila's lap. It was a picture of a girl standing on a stage with huge red lines drawn across her. Below the drawing, she had written, "They called me broken." Anna touched the corner of the paper gently. "That's a powerful picture," she said. Lyla shook her head. "It's ugly." "Like me?" Anna's heart broke. She didn't say you're wrong. She didn't say you're beautiful. She knew those words, while kind, wouldn't reach the part of Lila that had already shut down. So instead she said, "Do you want to hear what someone once told me?" Lila nodded. "I was standing on a stage once, and everything went wrong. My dress ripped, and everyone saw more of me than I wanted. I was scared. I thought the world would laugh forever." "Did they?" Lila asked. "Some did," Anna replied honestly. "But one person stepped in front of the cameras. Tell me to be strong? He didn't cover my face. He just gave me space to breathe." And I took a deep breath. And that's when I realized. Sometimes we think we're broken, but really, we just need time and kindness to remember we're still whole. Lila looked at her for a long time. "Will you sign my drawing?" she asked. Anna took the pen and didn't just sign her name. She wrote, "They called me broken too. Now I call myself brave." By the time Anna went to the stage, something in her had shifted again. This time her words weren't planned. They came from somewhere deep. "We don't control what the world sees in us," she said, "but we do get to decide what we believe about ourselves." She paused, scanning the room. When we're shamed publicly, we think our story is over. But shame doesn't get the final word. Kindness does. Resilience does. Keanu stood in the back, his hands in his pockets, his face calm. He watched as a room full of tired parents and hurting children leaned forward, not to be entertained, but to be seen after the event. A boy came up to Anna with a torn backpack and shy eyes. "I get bullied for how I dress," he said. "But my mom told me to watch your speech from last year. I pretend you're in the hallway when I walk past them." Anna knelt and hugged him. "You don't have to pretend," she whispered. "I'm with you now," as they left the event. Keanu held the door open for a line of kids leaving with crafts in hand. One girl stopped beside him and said, "I liked your scene in that kindness movie." Keanu chuckled. "I wasn't acting." She nodded like she understood, then ran off. On the drive home, Anna looked out the window at the passing city lights, She said softly, "I used to think the worst thing that happened too. Me was that red carpet moment." Keanu glanced over, and now I think it was the best thing," she replied. "Not because it made me famous, but because it broke something open and let the light in." Keanu smiled. "You always had the light," he said. "The world just saw it when you stood still long enough." Anna felt tears press at the back of her eyes, not from pain, but from healing. As the car rolled through the quiet streets, she realized something important. She was no longer afraid of being seen, not because the world had changed, but because she had. 6 months later, Anna was invited back to the Global Cinema Awards. The same stage, the same lights, the same red carpet, but nothing felt the same. This time, she wasn't just nominated. She was being honored not for a film, not for a performance, but for something the industry almost never recognized: quiet courage. They were giving her a new humanitarian award, created that year to celebrate dignity in the public eye. It wasn't about glamour. It was about impact. It was about showing up with grace when the world watches your worst moments. Anna stood in front of her mirror, fixing the last fold of her dress. It was simple cream white, no sparkle, no drama. Just elegant, strong, and soft. It was made by a young designer she met at one of the schools she'd visited. A student who used to be bullied for sewing instead of playing sports. On the inside lining of the dress, he had stitched 5 quiet words. "Stand still. You are enough." She traced them with her fingers and smiled. Keanu arrived right on time. Dark suit, calm face. The same quiet presence that never needed attention to be powerful. He looked at her and smiled, nodding without a word. They didn't speak much in the car. They didn't need to. As they stepped out together at the event, the cameras flashed like before, but this time the energy was different. They weren't trying to catch her fall. They were honoring her rise. Anna walked the carpet without fear. She didn't rush. She didn't flinch. She wore that same calm smile that had become her signature. Reporters asked her about the award. She thanked them, but kept her answers short. What mattered was what came later inside. The room was filled with the usual stars and flashing jewelry. But when Anna took the stage to accept the award, a hush swept over the room like a wave. Everyone leaned forward. Not out of curiosity, but respect. She held the award in her hands, made of carved glass shaped like a flame. "Thank you," she said gently. "But I don't accept this alone." Her eyes scanned the crowd and stopped at Keanu. This isn't just about surviving a mistake. It's about what happens when someone stands beside you instead of watching you fall. That night, on the red carpet, I lost control for a moment, but someone gave it back to me not by fixing it, but by standing in silence. The crowd was still. I've learned that shame grows in shadows, but dignity lives in daylight. And every time we choose presence over performance, we light a path for someone else. She held up the award for a second. This flame doesn't belong to me. It belongs to every person who's ever been embarrassed, laughed at, dismissed, and still came back. Soft applause began, then louder. But Anna didn't stay for the celebration. She quietly left after the speech and slipped out the side door. Keanu walking beside her. They sat on a bench in the back lot, under the stars. No cameras, no clapping, just stillness. Keanu finally broke the silence. "You did good tonight." Anna laughed softly. I didn't trip. That's already progress. You glowed, he said simply. She looked at him. You saved me that night, Keanu. He shook his head. You saved yourself. I just gave you a second to breathe. Leaned her head on his shoulder. You don't like the spotlight, do you? Nope, but you keep showing up, he smiled. It's not about being seen. It's about being there. They sat like that for a long time. Anna thought about Lila, the shy girl who now sent her drawings every month. She thought about Maya, whose film was now taught in 3 universities. She thought about the young boy who used to imagine her in the school hallway when walking past his bullies. And she thought about herself not as an actress, not as a name on a screen, but as a person who had learned to stand after breaking. One moment had tried to define her, but her response had rewritten. The ending, as she and Keanu got up to leave, she paused. Do you think people really change? She asked. I think people remember who they were before the world told them to hide. He replied. Anna smiled. She was no longer hiding. The world had tried to shrink her down to a moment of embarrassment, but instead, she had become a mirror for others, for herself, and for the truth that dignity isn't found in perfection. It's found in how we rise when the fabric tears, and how someone kind chooses to stand in front of the camera so you can gather your strength in peace.